You ready?
Yep.
Okay, what we're talking about is changing the design of a transvaginal aspiration needle. A transvaginal aspiration needle is approximately 22 inches long. It has an inner needle that goes into the outer needle eventually, like so, so that you can push fluid out the needle as you aspirate fluid back into the needle. The needle also has to be accommodated into a long ultrasound probe. The design flaw that we deal with all the time is not the inner needle itself, even though it has a plastic hookup. That never seems to fail. What fails is this plastic hookup here that connects the fluid going in the needle, the fluid coming out of the needle, and the two needles together. So there's the basic problem is that this has a threaded. One problem is that it's plastic, so it's prone to fail. And another problem is that it is threaded, but it threads onto a flange on a needle, like a typical needle louver lock. If this portion of this needle hub was threaded to receive 2 or 3 threads of this plastic hookup, it would work much better. But all this threaded portion is able to do is just barely hook over that flange, and now as we move, that joint weakens all the time and can weaken very rapidly. So now I'm going to let Jamie put this together as you film it, so you know how it goes together. So her inner needle is going into the plastic and to seat itself there. And it's if you'll notice, this is just a flange instead of having 2 or 3 threads to receive another threaded end. If it was threaded there, it would last much longer, but it's not. It's a flange. Then the inner needle, once hooked up to that, goes into the outer needle, which is actually the needle that penetrates the tissues, and then that screws over the flange. The plastic piece is threaded, but again, the metal piece is not threaded. So all we have is this flange, and you can see the movement that allows because there's no threading. And that fatigues and wears out very, very rapidly. The tubing coming from these,
This needs to be metal.
This
Yeah.
also cracks.
Okay.
and the metal piece the plastic piece cracks. So if this piece was metal, if this piece had a threaded end here to receive this threaded end, and if the needle itself was threaded instead of only flanged, that would solve the problems. Threaded end on this end of the middle piece, threaded end on the needle, and this middle piece, connector piece made out of metal. The tubing coming out of these connectors, one tube goes to the fluid that goes into the mare, the other tubing receives the fluid coming out of the mare. Okay? So did that make sense?
Now you show me like how we
Okay, yeah. Once this needle is through this probe and then through the mare's vaginal wall and into her ovary, Jamie's objective in assistance with this procedure is she must basically rub the inside of that follicle by moving her hand like this. And because she's moving her hand very rapidly like that, basically hundreds of times during a procedure, you can see how that puts stresses on the end of this needle and on these joints. And there's no other way to do this procedure. We have to scrape the follicular wall with the end of the needle. So that action like this is the action that it takes to get that done, and it's stressing these joints that are already poorly designed.
Got it.
Okay.
And Dr. Matthews, how many universities, once you can get this perfected, I'm assuming you could go anywhere with this, right?
Well, we don't talk to a lot of people about their problems with these needles. Everybody faces the same issue, though, I guarantee it. And I don't think it's a very hard design to make this out of metal instead of plastic, to thread this end, and then to make a needle that is threaded at the end. Those are the design flaws with this whole configuration. How many would I think with those design flaws removed, everybody that does this procedure would want one of those needles.
Got it. Okay.
It's very frustrating. The design flaw is so bad that oftentimes this will fatigue in 30 seconds. And now we're in the middle of a procedure with a valuable mare, and instead of retrieving oocytes from this mare, we're leaking fluid on the floor. Extremely frustrating, and to not only us but to our clients. So if we can solve the problem, it'll make a big difference.
Got it.